Hello, good afternoon. I know I'm the last speaker, and thank you very much for being here. And I feel a little bit vulnerable and a little bit nervous talking to you in English and telling you for the first time my story. So I hope you help me a little bit by understanding. Thank you. So my name is Marianne Kimmel, and I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And the next 20 to 30 minutes I will talk to you about the sexual abuse that happened to me till I was 9, the effect that it had on my life, and how I became the woman of today, a happy woman with a good life. And my message to all the victims of sexual abuse is that a happy life after sexual abuse is possible, but it's a long road. It's my mission to speak up about what happened to me. First, it helps myself. I experienced that talking about my experiences helps me to get understanding from people. I experienced that people believe me, that they will listen to me. And I recognize myself in other victims. The pain I go through, I see in other victims, and they tell me they feel the same. So I get more compassionate about myself. I think that talking about sexual abuse is a big part of healing. But I'd like to thank you for listening, because that's much more important than you think. Because you listened to my story, you gave me the chance to share. But then, you hear me talking, you think about it, and then you go home. And you think about it, and then you talk with your loved ones, with friends about it. And they think about it, and some of them will talk to other people. And so, slowly, more and more people will talk about abuse. And that's a good thing, that's a very good thing, because perpetrators threaten us. They tell us that if we talk, they will harm us, or no one will believe us. So the more we talk, the more children will dare to talk either when it happens to them. I now tell my story for a few years on television, in newspapers and magazines. And it wasn't always that easy to talk about what happened to me. For years, I kept quiet because I was afraid. Because my dad, who's the perpetrator, he threatened me. He told me that if I would talk, he would bring me to court for slander. And I never took him to court, so I had no proof, and he could win that case. That all changed in 2013. A television maker asked me to tell my story on national television. I hesitated. I was so afraid for my father, what he would do. So I talked to people, family, but also professionals. And they told me, well, if your father will bring you to court, he can win. And at that moment, I realized, if I want to break through the fear I had all of my life for my father, then I have to do it. I have to go on national television and tell my story and accept the consequences. And that's what I did. I told my story on television, and my father didn't press charges against me. He only wrote an angry letter. But for me, it was a turning point, because at that moment, all the fear for my father was gone, forever. Do you know that 1 in 4 girls experience an unwanted sexual act? I'm such a girl. And do you know that 95% of all victims of sexual abuse know their perpetrators? I know my perpetrator, it was my father. And do you know that 4 out of 5 incidents of sexual abuse will occur before the age of 18? For me, it happened a few years, till the age of 9. I come from a small family, with a mother and a father, and no brothers and no sisters. A few family members passed away, and so I have now left an aunt, an uncle, and 2 nieces. My father says I'm crazy, that I all made it up to hurt him. My mother believes him. And my aunt and my uncle and my nieces believe them too. So I have no contact anymore with any of my family members. I remember how my father came up the stairs and sat on the edge of the bed and asked me, "Little, lovely daughter of mine, do you sleep? I want to say goodnight to you." I felt cold, very, very afraid, and I wasn't able to move and couldn't breathe. And then my father took the blanket a little bit lower and lower, and then his hands directed my hands or my mouth to do things I didn't want to do. Sometimes he came in a few times a week, and sometimes he didn't show up for more than a week. There was no pattern. But I always listened carefully how he walked and how he talked, because on the way he moved, he walked and he talked, I could hear if he would come for me or not. And that gave me a little bit of a safety feeling in an unsafety world. My father was a controlling man. He earned the money, and my mom was a staying-home mom. And he thought that he could tell us what to do and what was allowed and what wasn't. And I was scared of him, not only because he abused me, but also because he was very angry all the time. And I didn't do anything right by him. And my mom, she couldn't comfort me because she was afraid for him too. Mostly he abused me in my bed at night. Sometimes he did it on the boat or on holiday, but always when my mother was away. And for him, the controlling man he was, it was easy to say to my mom, "Well, don't come upstairs, don't come home, because I have a special father-daughter moment," and then she wouldn't come. As a child, I was always afraid. I tried to be the best and lovely kid there was, but I didn't succeed. He was always angry and told me almost every day that if he could send me back, that he would. When I was 9, the worst and most traumatic thing happened in my life. But it was also the very same moment that the abuse stopped. So it was also a good thing that it happened, because otherwise I would have had more pain for years. My father told me a few weeks before that we'd had a special father-daughter day. He made me excited and enthusiastic about it. And I thought, well, that's my moment. That's the moment I can show my father what a lovely daughter I am. And then the day came, and he took me in his car, and he didn't drive to the place where we needed to be. He drove first kind of to McDonald's, or that we went ice skating, but we didn't. We went to a house. I didn't know the house, and we went in. And my father told me to sit in the chair while he was preparing the room. He removed all the chairs around the table, and he cleared the table. And then he had little drinks and chips. And then he told me to get undressed. At that moment, I got really scared. But then, to save my life, I thought, well, if I do exactly what my father wants me to do, then he will see what kind of girl I am. That I will listen to him, that I obey him, and that I'm the perfect daughter. So I undressed myself and I laid on the table on my back. I was blindfolded. While I was laying there, the doorbell rang, and I heard voices of men. 2, 3, 4, start counting, about 6. They were laughing, they were talking. And then my father said, well, you can do anything with her. I trained her for years. She's yours and she will do anything. And then the man started touching me, softly, a little bit hesitated. And at one point, my father got frustrated, really frustrated. They weren't doing it right. So he said to them, I didn't train her for years, and then did you do this to her? I will show you what to do. And he walked up to me, to the table, and he pulled me by my hair, and he pulled me over the table with my head. And my mouth was the same height as his dick. Well, you can imagine what happened. And I felt like I was choking, I was dying. I didn't know what to do. I was so frightened. I couldn't breathe, and I thought really that I was gonna die. And at one point, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, the men were gone. And my dad was angry, real angry. He hit me, and he told me that I'd scared him so much, and that he was mad at me, that I spoiled the father-daughter day. And then he wanted to help me getting dressed. And for the first time in my life, I yelled at him, and I told him never to touch me again. We went home, and my father told my mother that I spoiled the father-daughter day and that I needed punishment. So my mother left me alone. But then I got ill for about a week, 2 weeks. I was out of school, I was at home. And then, after 2 weeks, I went to school again, like nothing ever happened. Years went by, and my father never touched me again after that night. But I was still the emotional, unstable child, like my father and mother said, the problem child. And at the age of 15, I went to a concert with a friend. And there, for the first time, I experienced a panic attack. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was choking and dying, and I ran out. And from that moment on, I had panic attacks every minute of the day. I couldn't go to school, I couldn't sleep alone, and I couldn't go to the toilet by myself. My father, he didn't bother. And my mother, she tried to help me. Sometimes she slept with me if I didn't dare to sleep alone. That went on for years. And then finally, at 21, I left the house and went to a student home. But then the panic attacks were still there. So I knew I had to work on myself. If I ever wanted to get out of the life, because I thought a lot about taking my own life, I knew I had to go in therapy and face what happened to me as a child. My self-esteem was very low, and all the therapists, they tried to help me, and they did a little bit at the time. But I didn't believe I was worth it. I really believed that I was a bad kid and that I didn't deserve to live. So it took time, it took years. And then, at the age of 26, I finally found the nerve to confront my dad. And I met him, and I told him what I remembered, what I knew he had done. He got angry, real angry, and he told me that I wasn't his daughter anymore. And at that moment I couldn't care less. Because the power that I felt by looking him in the eye and telling him what I did, what I knew, was for the first time a power that I knew I could survive. I could make it in this world. That was a real big turning point for me. In 2013, I started the foundation project Speak Now. With the foundation, we like to open up about sexual abuse and stimulate people to talk about their experiences. So we held supporting groups through all the Netherlands. We have now in 9 places supporting groups each month. Mostly women come together and talk about what happened to them as a child. It's healing. We can see it and we hear it. It's good to talk about what you have experienced. We also have one-on-one coaching. If people think it's too scary to tell their story in a group, they can talk to a one-on-one coach. And we will help them as long as they feel the strength, they can share in a group with people their story. I think that we reached over 100 people or more the past 2.5 years. And they all tell what I experienced myself. Talking about it heals. Talking about it helps. Right now, I'm 44 years old. And I can say that I'm living a happy life, a fulfilled life. I'm glad with who I am. And the biggest lesson I learned in the whole process of healing is that it's all about loving yourself. And that's a long road. If you have experienced sexual abuse, you don't know what self-love is. And if there's no support along the way, it's very hard to find it at a higher age. But step by step, you can do it. You can feel that you are worth something. And then, when you have one moment of that feeling, that's the moment you know you're gonna make it. And that there's also for you a paradise waiting. And now, when I look back, I know I could have missed all the pain and the sexual abuse. But the place where I am now, so grateful for everything that happens, the most little things of life, I am so glad with. So when I look back, I can just only be grateful for the road I took and for the opportunity I got to be this happy. So I think that for everybody, there's this moment you can reach self-love. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your story. It was impressive. And I just wanted to know if you, somewhere in this time, did you go to the police? Did you make an aangifte?
Thank you. Yeah. No, I didn't, because my whole life I thought I was worth nothing. No one would believe me, that I was crazy. And my father told me that no one would believe me, and I believed him, so I didn't dare. I knew I had no proof. My mom didn't believe me, my dad didn't say he did it. There was no one around who could verify that it happened, so it was me alone. So I was too afraid that no one would believe me, so I didn't do it.
I can understand.
And if you look back, who or what could have helped you earlier? Now you helped yourself, I suppose. Is there anybody or anything that could have happened in time.
Yeah, if people would have believed me, that's the most main thing, because there's one or two people out of the family acquaintance, and they told me later on that they knew that they had seen it in some way, but they didn't do anything because that aunt was married to the brother of my father, my uncle, and he was not a nice man either, so she had troubles in her life, and she didn't want to mess with me. So that's difficult, because then you feel abandoned again, and yeah, maybe she couldn't help it, but that's hard.
Did you know it as a child that she knew? Did you know it as a child that she knew, or is that the information you got later?
26, 27, she told me. Because my father told about her that she was a bad person, so I wasn't allowed to contact her earlier than when I was grown up.
Was there any professional, a teacher, a doctor in your surroundings, a neighbor who you confined to, who you told little bits? Or?
Yeah, but that's difficult, because I thought if I said, well, my dad wasn't nice yesterday, he hurt me, I thought that people would understand what he did, but they didn't. Well, every father is angry at one time,
and they didn't ask the next question.
Yeah, but I wasn't too sure. I didn't feel safe to talk about it. I was so scared. And at one day, I told not really a teacher, but she felt something maybe was going on, so she went to my parents. Yeah, and then my father hit me quite hard, and he was so angry because somebody came and asked him about some things about his daughter. So that was a sign it was not safe to talk.
There's a question over there, behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, the last thing you say, I sometimes teach teachers how to start talking about possible signs of something that's going wrong in the home situation, and I always say to them, but if I hear you, and I always say that it's risky if you ask if you're going to talk to the parents, but I always say that it's very important to talk to the kids and let them know that you see them, and that. So what could the teacher have done so that it was going better? Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Now it's worse for you because you got home and you got hit.
Yeah, yeah. That's a difficult question, because I talk a lot of victims, and it's for them it's all a different story. So, but for me, I was so unsafe. I was feeling so unsafe that I didn't really trust the world. No one. How nice they were. I didn't trust people, and that's the main thing. So if somebody asked me something, that I didn't trust it to be open about it. I always thought that they were in contact with my dad, and that there was conspiracy going on. So, and that was a big problem in me, because I had no trust in me, in the world, in everything around me. So it's very difficult at that point to reach me.
Now, it's good to see you now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would it maybe have been better if this teacher would have asked you, what can I do for you? Not take any action, just ask you, what can I do for you?
Yeah, that's exactly right, because there it went wrong. She thought she was doing the right thing, but it went worse and worse. So if she asked me, then I would have told her how scared I was, and that she hadn't to do anything, because I was so afraid for my dad. So.
Even if it was only being available for you to talk to,
Yeah.
if that was the only thing.
Yeah, and she was, but I didn't really talk to her, so.
Hi, I was wondering, are there any specific issues that you are dealing with now? You have been working a lot through this abuse.
and I can't imagine that you have recovered completely.
No,
What are
that will
these-
never happen. I think it's a part of me. So yeah.
Yeah, what are these is that you are working on now, that you still have to deal
Well,
with?
the fact they abandoned me, that's still hurtful to realize, and sometimes the lonely feeling in it. No family, no friends from when I was younger. I had to build my life all over again, and sometimes that's still, people can hurt me by that, by doing something, and I think back about, oh, that feels like abandonment, or so that's a horrible point still.
To the other side. So,
Hi. Did you ever think of going to the police now that you feel that you have recovered as far as possible?
Yeah, I wanted to a few years ago, but I couldn't because it was, I don't know how you say it, but verjaard. Yeah.
But it's
too long
40
ago.
years. 40 years.
Sorry?
It's 40 years. No?
No, it's less, I think. A few
Or
years
50?
ago. Yeah. Well, they told me it wasn't possible.
Because we have to keep our records for 40 years.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And so I thought, but maybe someone else knows better, that for 40 years you could still prosecute.
Okay. Well, that's not what they told me. But
What about your mother? How is have you got any relation with your mother? Could you tell something, or did she explain something after that?
Well, after the confrontation with my dad, I had no contact with him anymore. And with my mom, it's a little bit a different story. We tried to connect for a few years, even till I was 36, 37. But there was always the gap between I wanted her to believe me, and she wanted to convince me that it never happened. So that was always a fight point. And then a few years ago, we decided we don't have contact anymore because we can't solve it.
Have you got children?
No.
Hello, thank you for your story. In Flanders, we now have a chat box for victims of sexual abuse as an extra way of trying to tell their story. Do you think that kind of tools or help is useful for even young victims?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because from the foundation, I get a lot of people who ask me, I want to be anonymous. I want to tell my story, but I want to keep anonymous. And with us, you can't be anonymous because you're in a group or you have to say your name with the one-on-one coach. But then on the chat online, you can be anonymous and tell your story. So people who are so afraid to speak, it's I think, a very good way.
I have to add something, and I have to stand corrected, because Marie-José was telling about the verjaringswet.
Yeah.
And per the 1st of April of 2013, that law has been changed. And let me, because I looked at it in the Rijkswet. Let me get my glasses.
Yeah, good.
Sinds 1 april 2013 kunnen ernstige zedenmisdrijven tegen kinderen met een straf van 8 jaar en niet meer verjaren. Zo geldt geen verjaringstermijn meer voor verkrachting, aanranding of voor gemeenschap met kinderen onder de 16 jaar. Dus het is niet alleen afgeschaft voor ernstige zedenmisdrijven die na 1 april 2013, maar daarvoor ook. Dit geldt ook voor misdrijven die op dit moment ook nog niet zijn verjaard. So, I agree with Marie-José. If you ever have the urge to do it, you have to.
Okay, well, thanks. I didn't know, so.
No more questions? Well, then thank you very much again for sharing this with us, and very important for accepting